As the temps start rising, I feel the familiar urge to refresh my closet, but I don't want to waste money on pieces I'll only wear once or for just one season. Thankfully, Quince changes that. Their clothes are timeless, lightweight, and far more elevated than anything else at this price. It finally feels like my wardrobe matches my standards. The best part is that Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes, so you get to look good while feeling good. I'm pretty excited that I have upgraded my athleisure wardrobe for this summer. I bought a sweatshirt and a pair of wide-leg flow pants that are two of the softest items I own, and I plan to live in them. So join me in giving your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/POTC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/POTC to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/POTC.
So often when we experience painful things, there is not always, but there is often some good that comes out of it.
Sometimes we almost dismiss our own suffering when it feels minor compared to some other situation that's much worse. And it goes back to that idea of both and. Like, yes, it's true. There are some horrors in this world and there is profound suffering. And this is happening in your life, and it's okay to feel what you feel about it.
When we go through a painful process or something tough, what good can come out of that is where you're getting your support and how your relationships can really bolster you.
What is to give light must endure burning. And it's so true. Like, if you want to be the light for others, you need to be a burning candle.
That was us, your co-hosts on Psychologists Off the Clock.
We are four experts in psychology here to bring you cutting-edge and science-based ideas from psychology to help you flourish in your relationships, work, and health.
I'm Dr. Debbie Sorenson, a clinical psychologist practicing in Mile High, Denver, Colorado, and author of Act for Burnout, Act Daily Journal, and the Act Daily Card Deck.
From America's Heartland, I'm Dr. Emily Edlynn, a clinical psychologist based in Chicago, Illinois, and author of Autonomy Supportive Parenting.
Calling in from Vienna, Austria, I'm Michael Herold, ACT coach, confidence trainer, and author of an upcoming book on being a better conversationalist and making friends.
And from coastal New England, I'm Dr. Jill Stoddard, author of Be Mighty, The Big Book of ACT Metaphors, and Imposter No More.
We hope you take what you learn here to build a rich and meaningful life.
Thank you for listening to Psychologists Off the Clock.
Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. We're here today with a little bit of a different episode than usual. We have all four of the co-hosts here today, and we're just going to have a little chat. We're calling this our cozy fireside chat because it's winter, it's dark, it's the holidays. And so you're probably used to hearing some psychology content from us and maybe an interview with an author or something like that. But today we're just going to have a little bit more of just a casual conversation. And because it's the holiday season when we're releasing this one and it's winter up here in North America, it's dark. And so we just thought it would be nice to imagine ourselves all sitting by a fire together with our warm socks on and a nice beverage and just having a little chat. Actually, and it gives me a reminder of our second episode ever, which is about, Michael, I'm going to cue you here. It's
Hygge. The Danish concept of hygge.
Hygge. See, he's our European in the crowd.
Yeah. And because we have different languages in Europe, if someone from Denmark is listening and I pronounce that totally wrong, please send your complaints to Debbie for cueing me on this one.
Right. Well, you're better than me. And even though I'm half Danish by ancestry, I have never lived in Europe. And so I can't pronounce Danish words at all. So even though my name is actually Sorenson is a Danish name, but I had a Danish friend in high school who was a foreign exchange student who told me I was pronouncing my own last name incorrectly. So anyway, I digress. So part of this Danish practice is that in the dark, cold winter months, and it gets dark and cold up there, in Denmark, that they just enjoy spending time together and connecting and just getting cozy together. And that's part of how they make it through the winter. And so we're here to capture a little bit of that today.
Woohoo, let's do this. I did not bring a cozy drink, actually. So I'll be holding on to my bottle of water. And even though I was looking forward because it's evening here in Austria, so I would technically be allowed is the wrong word, but it would technically be okay for me, I guess, to have a cozy glass of wine or whatever. But my decision fell on just some healthy water in the spirit of living a more healthier, health-oriented life, and not drinking during podcast episodes.
Well, this is kind of an imaginary fireside chat because here in the US, when we're recording this, it's Monday morning. So I also just have water, but
And no fire.
No fire.
Does anyone have a fire?
Nope.
No. I mean, Debbie had one, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, right. That's the wrong kind of fire. I'll tell you about that later on. Yeah.
Well, healthy living is sort of a good segue since here we are toward the end of the year. We've got the new year coming up when lots of people start thinking about changes that they might want to make. So do you guys have any specific goals, either goals that maybe you accomplished this year in 2023 that you're feeling really good about, or maybe some goals that you had that you didn't quite get to, or goals that you have coming up for the upcoming year?
Well, I published my first book. So that was a long time goal coming. I think it was 10 years ago that I had the flicker of, I really want to write a parenting book. And it took a long time, as these things do. So it's pretty cool that it actually happened. And my surprise accomplished goal was hosting a podcast.
Really? Which one?
Yeah, it's in here right now. So that was one of those surprises that I really thought wasn't actually ever going to happen. It was just sort of a dream. And then it all became a reality. So you just never know. So that was what I hadn't been plotting for 10 years. And then it happened the same year as my other big dream. So it's a pretty cool year.
I love it. That's awesome.
Well, I'm kind of glad that you mentioned that writing your first book took you around 10 years, because this is my big goal for next year, to crunch those 10 years into one. So the goal for next year is to get my book out. And I'll probably start with just creating more of a support group and a writing habit. I'm an Olympic grade procrastinator. So anything where I'm not getting my butt kicked a little bit here and there is something that I'm just procrastinating on. And I'd so like to get this book out, get my ideas written down, have that out there for people to read. So this is my big goal for next year.
Well, then my goal is going to be your ass kicker. Like, challenge accepted. I am going to come in and be like, Michael, have you been writing? How much have you been writing this week, Michael?
It's going to be I'm going to grab that from the recording and make it like my alarm clock in the morning. So I wake up with guilt. This is beautiful.
Well, I want to make a correction though, Michael. I did not actually work on my book for 10 years. I just thought about it. And then it took 10 months. So I did it in 10 months. So you can do it.
It's doable. Nice. And now that I have Scary Chill as my butt kicker, this is going to happen in like 8 weeks.
There you go.
Emily, did you spend 9 years in the contemplation phase and then 1 year in the action phase? Got it.
Someday I should do this. No. Yeah. I mean, actually starting my blog in 2017, I wanted to write a book and I got feedback that was ridiculous because I had zero platform. You don't just go out and write a book these days with nothing behind you. So that was my naive, I'm going to write a book. It's not that easy. So I actually wrote my blog starting in 2017, didn't get an agent until 2020, and then the book contract in 2021. So those were the years of putting some time in.
The toil.
Yes.
It's a lengthy process.
I was thinking when you asked that question, Jill, about something that happened to me over this past year. So I remember the week between Christmas and New Year's last year, my family went on a road trip to Moab, which it's a great time to go on a little trip to a place like that because no one's there and it's very relaxing. And we stayed in a condo. We had like the whole building to ourselves practically because it was a little chilly, but it was great. Anyway, on that trip, I was in the middle of finishing up my book that's coming out next year, my Act for Burnout book. And I was so exhausted and I had been writing and working, but I took a couple days on that trip to just read fiction. And actually I was reading a memoir and fiction. And I thought, I am a reader. I love to read. I am not reading enough. And so one of my goals, and I like this one because it's a fun one. It's not one of those like punishing kind of should type goals. So I was like, I just need to get back to reading. I need to carve it out. I need to spend time reading before bed at night. And I really feel like I did. I mean, I'm not saying every week I spent a lot of time reading, but I read a lot more and I just gave myself permission to do that. And I'm looking back on the year thinking, I did make that change. It helped that I finished the manuscript for my book. I mean, I think if I was still working on it, I may not have done that as much, but it was a very, we talk about goals should be values aligned and desirable, not just you should do this and you should do that and self-punishing. And to me, this is very much a want to goal, not a should goal. So it feels really good to look back on the year and think about the books I've read and the time I spent reading and feel like, okay.
It's also nice because it's a process-based goal, right? We talk a lot on the show about how you can't control outcome because there's so many things that go into, you could have a goal of writing a book, but whether you get a contract isn't entirely up to you. And reading more is something you control, which is great.
Right. And I didn't say something, sometimes people will be like, I'm going to read a book, 2 books a month or something. I didn't have a number or I didn't put it in that way as like a specific, I wasn't very detailed about it. It's just like, I just want to spend more time reading. That was it.
So do you have a favorite that you would recommend? I just finished a book and I need a new book. A favorite fiction book, I mean.
I'll have to think about that.
Emily gave Michael and I the suggestion of Love of My Life. No, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Love of My Life?
Yeah.
But do you remember who wrote it? We'll have to look it up.
Rosie Walsh.
Oh, yeah, Rosie Walsh. And that was such a good recommendation.
Oh,
I
yes.
loved it so much. And Michael, you loved it too, right?
Yeah, I think it took me 2 days to get through that book. It's a little bit distracting.
I just finished one that I will tell everyone to read if we can do a little.
Yes.
Cloud Cuckoo Land.
Okay, I'm going to write it down. I trust your recommendations now, Emily.
Anthony Doerr, who wrote All the Light We Cannot See.
Oh, yeah.
I just loved
that on
book.
Netflix.
Okay. That's good.
I
love that.
And as writers, I think you can appreciate the level of difficulty of this book. I mean, it is truly like a literary masterpiece, what he pulls off in this book. It's all across different timelines, including like a futuristic sci-fi feel, along with like ancient Constantinople. Like it's this crazy like span.
So I learned something really interesting this year, which is a little bit of a shocker, and that is that our very own Jill Stoddard does not like time travel and like space-time continuum material. So she's not going to be in my Trekkie club. Okay, good.
It's like 3 different plots going on with 3 different sets of characters. And the whole time you're like, how is this all going to intersect? And then he pulls it off. And literature is at the core of it all. So I think as passionate readers, this will resonate. And it's just a very enriching book that I will remember for a long time. And I read a lot of books, so I forget very easily. I just know, I liked that one. But this one, I will remember the characters.
That's a good recommendation.
Beautiful.
Well, what I might need to work on next year is I don't like things that I don't understand, which is why I hate time travel, because I find understanding the space-time continuum so complicated and it makes me feel stupid. And I don't like things like that. So maybe that needs to be one of my goals. Or I could use Ross Dawson's model for seeking information about space-time, and maybe I'll dig into that, but probably not.
Okay, so you asked me what books I'd recommend from the year. So I'm going to, along those lines, there's a French book called The Anomaly this will blow your mind. So Jill, you should push yourself and read. It's very good, but it has that kind of, it like, at the end, you feel like your brain's about to explode kind of thing.
No, I don't read that kind of fiction.
So read that. It's exposure therapy. Jill. No,
I don't want it to. I don't want it to feel like work. It's supposed to be enjoyable.
Okay, so for people who do like that, but the book that actually I was reading in Moab that got me to remember how much I love reading was a memoir. You might have heard of it, called "I'm Glad My Mom Died."
I'm glad my mother's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad my mom died. Jeanette McCurdy is her name.
Jeanette McCurdy. Okay, you've read it already, because it was, and it's a psychology book, so it seems relevant to talk about on the podcast today, because it's a really interesting and heartbreaking, but also kind of just a really fascinating story, a true story, and which makes it all the more powerful. It's a memoir.
So I listened to this book. It is really good. I listened to it on Audible. And so my daughter, my 11-year-old, was in the car for a few of the times that I listened. And she got hooked, but then had no way of listening to it herself. So we went to the bookstore to buy books, and that was the book she wanted to buy.
Wow.
And so the cashier, was like, wait, so your daughter is buying a book called "I'm Glad My Mom Is Dead"? And I'm like, yeah, but see, the way I look at it is this is a story of a mother who is such a bad mother that she's going to read it and think I am the world's greatest mother in comparison to Jeanette McCurdy's mother.
It's all relative, right? I mean,
Right.
See, I'm better than her. Yes.
It could be worse, honey. It could be worse.
Yeah.
Jill, did you say what you did this year? Did I miss that?
What's your goal or goal looking back or ahead, Jill? I think you're the one who hasn't answered that.
Yeah, I don't think I had any like big goals for this past year. I mean, I also like published a book and whatnot, but I think my biggest thing really is going into next year. And this is actually a huge reveal. So, I've been thinking a lot about what I want my kind of like next career steps to look like. And I've been doing less and less psychotherapy. And I'm also not licensed in Massachusetts, where I live now. So all the therapy I'm doing is online in California. And what I actually am getting very interested in, and the reason for this, actually, Emily, you probably know what I'm about to say. So Emily and Emily connected me to her best friend, who's this like badass business person. And it was through a conversation that I had with her about what I'm doing and what I want to do next. And she basically said, Jill, when you talk about this, you light up. Like, this needs to be the next thing you do, but I've been shying away from it. And the reason is I want to do bariatric coaching. So there are over 200,000 people in the US who have bariatric surgery every year. And there are very few resources. And so many people do this, but it's this like dirty little secret, because there's a lot of shame and embarrassment and just feelings, right? You put yourself into the space in our culture and have anything to say about weight and bodies, and it can be a very punishing place to be. And so I myself had bariatric surgery 2.5 years ago, which you guys know, but I have never, anybody who asks, I talk very openly about it, but I don't post about it on social media. I don't talk about it on the podcast, because I don't want to deal with trolls. I don't want to deal with opinions, quite frankly. Like, this is the best thing that I have ever done for my health. And maybe we can talk about it more in a future episode or something. But so I've seen a few post-surgical bariatric clients in my therapy practice, and I've done acceptance and commitment therapy with them. And it's just been life-changing. And so I think I bring this unique, both my skill set as an ACT therapist, but also my personal experience as a person who is successfully living very healthfully after bariatric surgery, that the two of those things together, I think I really have something to offer to people who are going through this, who really like often have this surgery and then are just like on their own to figure it out. So I think I want to do some coaching for bariatric clients. And that I'm like noticing I'm like very anxious and feeling a little breathy, because it feels like I'm open. It just feels very vulnerable. It feels like I'm opening something up for, people on the body positivity side think that you shouldn't do this. And people on the other side think it's like the easy way out. And there's just so many opinions that are often not supportive, which is why I've sort of like kept it among my my friends rather than in public. But I also realize if this is something I really want to go after, I have to start doing my own exposure and getting willing to, put myself out there in that way.
Well, you can be that agent of change for all of those people suffering in silence, feeling like they can't talk about it and they can't share. And I mean, you really could be the person that changes that narrative on a larger scale.
And I know so many people who keep it a secret. They don't, even if someone asks, oh, you've lost so much weight. How did you lose weight? People will lie because they're so scared of what the reaction will be. And so I never lie. I always tell anybody if they ask. So this is really, and truthfully, I've gotten very few negative or hurtful responses. And that's mostly because I'm telling people that care about me, not out in the World Wide Web. But the reason that I've been honest, at least in those circles, is because I don't think it should be a dirty little secret. I am not ashamed of it at all. And I'm happy to talk about it with people who want to talk about it in an open, curious, well-intentioned, non-attacking sort of way. But yes, I would love to change the conversation around this so that it isn't this shame, scary place that people hide in.
And Jill, you've been talking about this for a while now, of this being something you really care about and are passionate about and have an personal and professional interest in. So it's not just out of the blue. This is
no, it's not. And I thought about writing my next book about this. And truly the thing getting in the way is fear. It's the fear of trolls and attack. And I'm like, I just don't feel like taking that on. Yeah. But really it was when I had this conversation with Danielle, who doesn't know me. It's the first time we've ever met. And we were just on Zoom, and her seeing my energy and the way I talked about it, she was just very struck. And I'm like, okay, when a fresh sort of objective set of eyes sees that and feels that energy, that feels pretty telling. So I've really been sitting with that since we had that conversation. I'm like, yeah, I think this is the next place. So I've been applying to try to talk at different kind of conferences and things like that. So we'll see. It feels very scary and uncertain, but that is what I'm looking at leaning into for 2024.
That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Jill. And you're going to be so great at it. What comes up for me is that a lot of my clients want to work with me because I have a disability and they feel like I'm in the same boat as they are. So I know what's going on, and that is a huge help for someone who is looking for support. And a year ago, actually, I got a tattoo that was my guiding quote in life, and it is, "What is to give light must endure burning." And I have that tattooed on my wrist. It's by Viktor Frankl, wrote this in The Doctor and the Soul, quoting Wilkins. And it's so true. If you want to be the light for others, you need to be a burning candle. And it's just
I love that. I've never heard that before. I love that. That actually made me feel a little bit choked up.
That's beautiful. I love that that's your life motto and you have it, a reminder on your wrist. Yeah.
Woo! Well, thanks for listening. That felt brave. Audience, be nice to me, please.
I think what this brings up, Jill, because your conversation with Danielle then inspired me. And so we're actually having a talk this week all about my future. So this is all connected. But I think what really struck me and made me pay attention to myself is that feeling of where is your energy? Where do you light up? When you start talking about something, when do you have the heart racing and you can't get the words out fast enough and you just get so energized and excited? That's very different than, I should write a book about X because that's where the market is, or that would be successful, or that's where my niche has been. It's a full body, this is where my heart is. And
I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but so the very first time I ever saw a client ever, in my master's program. So it's like just doing kind of an intake. It wasn't even therapy yet. And I just got goosebumps all over my body. And from that point forward, I said, that's my body barometer. Whenever that happens, I know something important is happening. And Emily, just now when you said you're going to be meeting with Danielle to talk about, I got the goosebumps all down both of my arms. But I do think we embody a lot of information that we might sometimes ignore, that I think can be really useful to pay attention to. And the opposite is true too. If there's a feeling of heaviness, or other kinds of things in our bodies, those can be really helpful signals about what a move toward versus a move away might look like.
And I think what people may not realize who aren't doing this sort of creative work and trying to forge a career in creativity, there is no set path. There's really no linear, you do this and then you do this. I mean, it's very different from my whole academic background, right? Of getting an advanced degree and knowing I'm going to be a psychologist, being a writer or a creative. There's a million different directions. And so it can be very paralyzing of where do I go next and what's going to feed me and nourish me while also benefiting people, because that's really the goal for me, is like to really influence people's lives in a healthy, positive way. Yeah. So how can both of those things happen? There's no clear-cut direction. There's no map.
If you see the path ahead of you, you're probably walking in someone else's, is a quote by someone whose name I forgot.
You're the quote master today.
I
am. Well, what about any challenges that you feel like you've endured this year or like overcome that you want to share? Because we had alluded to your garage
we alluded to one of mine. Actually, before I dive into that, let me just say this. Before we dive into that, I think we should acknowledge just some of the challenges in the world as we're reflecting back on 2023. I mean, even in just the last few months with what's going on in the Middle East and just the ongoing things the last few years, I think a lot of people are going to look back at 2023 and just some of those challenges and how hard the world feels. So, but on a more personal level, I did allude to this earlier. A few weeks ago, at the time that we're recording this, we had a little, in the big scheme of things, it's minor. And when I think about some of the tragedies of the world, it really is. But we had a space heater catch on fire in our garage. We have a detached garage and it gets very cold out there. But my husband has an office out there where he works. And we were so lucky because it was kind of contained to this little corner, which was sectioned off from the rest of the garage. It extinguished itself. No one was there. No one was hurt. Our garage is still standing. However, a lot of things were destroyed, and it's been a whole process getting, things salvaged and replaced, and insurance and contractors. And so it's been stressful. I mean, honestly, we were already busy with the kids and work and life and stressors. And so it was just one more thing. So it's a lot. And just one of those things that just happened kind of randomly out of the blue. I mean, I live in an old house in Denver. Everyone I know uses space heaters, and it was just a fluke, a cord problem. And, but it gave me really, I think, an existential moment of my life, because first of all, it did feel a little bit like a close call. Like, what if that had been a space heater in the house or in one of the kids' rooms or something? And so it was a perspective shift, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is all stuff that we can replace. It's not the end of the world. I think it also led us to take a look at, we have a lot of stuff that we store out in the garage, like our camping gear and tools and that kind of thing. And to look at it a little bit like, this is just stuff. We're kind of going through getting rid of some of it, and actually some things out in the house too, just kind of trying to clean things out. And it's just, to me, a huge reminder of, it's a perspective shift, right? And in some ways you'd think, oh, it's so stressful. Who wants to deal with that? And I think that's absolutely true. But in a way, it's made me more appreciative for how fortunate I am and how this actually could have been so much worse and it wasn't.
Right.
And what really matters, they always say that some of these moments, like when you have to evacuate your home and just take a box with you, it's like what really matters to you kind of comes into focus a little bit in a way you can really easily lose sight of.
And
so that's mine.
That so often when we experience painful things, there is not always, but there is often some good that comes out of it, whether it is a perspective shift, whether it's just purging a whole bunch of old stuff that you don't need. I mean, I've shared with you all and with all of our listeners, the very, very painful experience that led to me being a co-host on this podcast, which I won't go into. People can go back and listen to, well, I don't know. I think it's in our 300th episode or something, but I've talked about it before. And, for us, we're dealing with a very, we just moved a year ago and we're dealing with a very challenging situation with one of our neighbors. And I won't go into the boring details, but it's been quite stressful and problematic. And it's a bummer. Like, you want to love all your neighbors. But the thing that's been nice about it is that it has led to us meeting our other neighbors who we didn't know before. And they're so wonderful and they're so supportive and just like terrific people. And so in the same moment that we're feeling the pain of disconnection from a neighbor, not that we were ever connected to them, but like, that you have the potential of being connected to these people you're going to live beside for probably a long time. We had the benefit of having a nice connection with the other people that we didn't know. And the other thing I want to say, just what you were saying, Debbie, is yes, there are always harder things going on in the world than what any of us are probably experiencing at any given time. And yet I do still think it's important for us to talk about these things because pain is pain and it's all valid, right? Because it could always be worse. I sometimes say to my clients, well, if you lost your arm, I wouldn't say you're not allowed to be upset because you have another arm, right? Like, yes, of course, things can always be worse, but you're allowed to feel what you're feeling. And I think it's important for all of us as human beings to talk about this, to really recognize our common humanity, that life is really hard, right? And the more that we are exposed to people's highlight reels and think that everybody else is doing perfectly fine and we're the only ones that are suffering and having pain, I think that is a real detriment to us, and that we are going to heal because we have each other and we know that we're all in this together and that we all go through hard things.
I think this is a really good point because I hear that a lot from clients, from friends, that sense of, well, I know that this problem isn't that big of a deal because people are suffering all over the world. And I do think you're making such a good point. Like, yes, that is true. And this is hard.
Right.
Too. This is hard too, because I think that sometimes we almost dismiss our own suffering when it feels minor compared to some other situation that's much worse. And it goes back to that idea of both and. Like, yes, it's true. There are some horrors in this world and there is profound suffering. And this is happening in your life. And it's okay to feel what you feel about it.
Yeah. So for me, the challenge this year and ongoing, I don't know if challenge is the right word because it's something that I've been living with my entire life, which is spinal muscular atrophy. So a neuromuscular condition that if I want to do a really bad job, but a quick job of explaining it, I would say muscular dystrophy, but slower in its progression. And everyone who knows about both conditions, like that's not how you explain it at all, but it's a quick way of like getting this. SMA is not as known out there as a muscular dystrophy is. So I've always been living with a body that loses strength over time. That's just always been my life. And when I moved to Vienna 10 years ago, my first weekend, I was bored. So I went on a half-an-hour walk. And these days, I'm maybe walking around my kitchen a little bit, holding on to the wall. And that's just how life has always been for me. So while I lament not being able to do certain things anymore, it's like, yeah, you know what? Same old. It's been like that forever. But this year I've started to notice that I'm losing strength in my arms as well. And they have never been like super strong, but my problems were my legs, not my arms. So now I find myself suddenly in situations where I realize, oh, that coffee cup is quite heavy. for the first time this year, I was out in summer. I ordered a beer and I realized I couldn't lift the glass and I had to ask them for a straw. And again, this is just how life works for me. And I'm not too concerned about my ability to deal with it. But at the same time, I also see a little bit of a time running out for certain things. So I'm thinking of stuff that I still want to do. What like virtual reality games do I want to finish while I can still like lift that sword around? What models do I still want to glue together and paint? What art do I still want to do while I can? And I don't want to say that it's a challenge or it's a struggle, but it's like, it feels like a weight that I'm carrying on my shoulders. And it's almost like it makes me, we've talked about appreciation earlier, and it really makes me appreciate the things that I can still do and will still do next year and the year after so much more. Because when the PlayStation 12 comes out, Michael's not going to play anymore. I'm sure about that. So these things are really precious to me now. And it's not just, this is, one of those evenings where I'm gaming. No, this is one of the last evenings where I'm playing certain games. And
for listeners who don't know, we're currently at PS5.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
If they don't understand the reference, the PS12 is going to be off into the future.
So yeah, that would be a reference to like in 30 years or so. Right. Thank you for pointing that out, Jill.
It's interesting to think of this. I don't know if dilemma is quite the right word, but one of the things we often talk about with our clients or on the podcast is sort of staying in the present and not like worrying into the future. And I can see that worrying into the future where you see a deterioration happening could be very scary. And yet it is also beneficial to think about the future so that like what you want and need to do now before you're no longer able to do it. And that's just sort of an interesting perspective, I guess, that I haven't really thought about before. And I imagine that must come with some grief.
Some grief, yes, but more so a levity. Where I'm like, there are certain areas in my life where I'm not saving money. Like, I'm not telling myself, oh, don't get this game yet, wait until it's on a sale, or don't get this remote control car, you already have 5. It's like, no, screw this. I want to make the memories while I can. And now I'm probably going to be bombarded by social media with all kinds of AdWords. And it is a certain freedom that I'm really allowing myself to take. Like, there is no budget in certain areas of my life. This happens now or it doesn't. Like, my ability to travel on my own has gone maybe 3 years ago, where now I wouldn't like dare do that anymore. And before, I would like fly to Southeast Asia and spend half a year there. I'd go to Japan on my own. And now like this doesn't work anymore. And I'm not sad, because while I could, I lived it to the fullest, and I have these memories and I have those photos and I have those videos, and I'm going to keep doing that. And I know that when I can't do certain things anymore, I'll find other stuff that maybe prank calling people. I'm not going to need arms for that.
You know what? It reminds me so much of a conversation I feel like we've had many times in different forms over the years about values and existentialism. And I'm thinking a lot about an episode I did with Robin Walzer specifically about existentialism. And when we do contact that sense that life is fleeting, that someday we're all going to be dead. I mean, this episode is really kind of going.
Yeah, that goes hooker for you.
Our casual chat, right? But it's like, so given that's the case, like the clock is ticking for all of us, here comes another year gone by, and here come, and so Michael, you're really living in the moment with that, because you have that existential sense of time. We don't have forever. So you're like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about saving $10. I'm going to live now and just go for it, you know?
And you know what's going to happen to your body. The rest of us just take for granted that we're just going to be fine forever. But like, really, we should be taking a page out of that notebook going, we don't know what tomorrow has in store for us either. So we should all be living in a way that doesn't take for granted that we have health, mobility, life, you know, down the road.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, Well, passing it on to Emily. What about you?
I mean, I guess I'll keep talking about my book, even though I don't want to like waste like my capital on that. But it's been a very tumultuous internal experience being a first-time author. And I just finished Jill's book, and she was talking about the inner self-critic and the voice that can be so loud that says you're not good enough. And that's like one of my main voices when it comes to the inner critic is the you're not good enough. And having a book out is a huge practice of facing that inner critic, because there are a million ways to see the message that it's not good enough, whether it's through the comparisons of like everyone else's book seems to be doing great, or the external metrics that fluctuate all over the place, or an Amazon review that you feel like, did you even read the book? You know, there's all of this external input that can really break you down if you give too much attention and energy. So I think personally, it's been an amazing exercise for me this year on a really deep level of how to stay grounded with my why and use my community. So back to that, what we were talking about earlier of how important it is when we go through a painful process or something tough, that what good can come out of that is where you're getting your support and how your relationships can really bolster you. And that has been the most meaningful part of this process, is how many people I know personally who believe in me and support me, and it counteracts all of that external noise. But it takes a lot of effort. And I just want to kind of name that it's very human to fall prey to all of that external messaging. So it's been a journey this year. So that's been my challenge, is facing my inner critic.
And having that community too, that can, who have also read your book and can honestly say, you did really good work here and this matters. And that it's that outcome again. Like, we have so little control over those outcomes and those metrics. Like, you can be the most talented anything, but in this case, writer, you know, you can have the talent and you can work your butt off. And there are so many factors outside of our control that play a role in what happens. And it's very difficult to hold that lightly. Like, it is an ongoing practice. And I'm having this exact same experience. You know, our books came out just a couple weeks apart. So I feel that so much. And I do. And it's, you know, it's helpful to have each other, right? Just like you're saying. It's tough.
Common humanity, right? Knowing you're not alone with feeling that way, right? Yeah.
That's why I wanted to share it.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that comes up around often professional goals, maybe personal stuff too, but is envy, which is something that maybe we don't talk about very often.
Yeah.
Because you feel guilty when you experience envy. And especially, you know, if some of the people you see who are getting what it is that you want, and they're people you care about, you do genuinely want them to succeed, and you feel envy at the same time. And I believe it was Chelsea Handler many years ago, and it's just always stuck with me. She posted something on social media about a close friend of hers who basically became an overnight comic success. And she was very, very envious because she had been grinding and working, and it took her so much more time and effort and energy to ever, you know, get that kind of traction. And she was really envious. But what she talked about is that is a completely normal feeling, and there is nothing wrong with that feeling. What matters is what you do with it. And you can both feel envy and choose to act, you know, in a values-driven way in terms of actually showing your support for the people that you care about, or being a good literary citizen and supporting other people's books, even if you're feeling sad about your own, and whatever your values are in that situation. And that's just always stuck with me. And I think it's important to name that very human emotion that many of us have.
Yeah. All right. Shall we end this episode, as we're coming up on the hour, maybe with something that has a little bit more levity and lightness to it? What about a lightning round?
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay. It's the holiday season when we release this episode. So I want to know, what is your least favorite holiday tradition in your life?
Oh, decorations, Christmas decorations. I abhor them. I had a girlfriend who made like a paper mache snowflake, and she put it so high up the window that I couldn't reach it. And I applauded it when it fell down a couple of days later. I don't like decorations at all.
Okay, Scrooge. What about you, Emily?
I hate wrapping presents. I love shopping and being thoughtful and like being really deliberate and intentional about what I get certain people. And I hate wrapping them. So that's my least favorite.
I honestly can't think of one because I just love this time of year. I love it so much. And now that there's online shop, what I would have said in the past is crowds, like going to the mall and having to deal with all the people. But now where there are so many options online, or even if you want to go in person, there are so many other people shopping online that the crowds are much more manageable now. And I just love every single thing about this time of year. Family and friends and music and decorations. And I don't even mind wrapping because I know what it's going to mean next. Oh, and now I get to do it in the winter, which is the best. I used to not like the weather in San Diego at Christmas because it is not supposed to be 80 degrees at Christmas. But now I'm in New England, so even that problem's been solved. What about you, Debbie?
Okay, I have 4 words. Elf on the shelf.
Never did it. Never did it.
We resisted the elf for a long time, but got talked into it because everybody has one, and that thing is a menace.
That is hysterical.
We held so firm on that. We were like, there will be no elves on our shelves ever.
You stayed strong. I did for many years, and then I finally caved.
I have no idea what you folks are talking about, but I will just Google that.
Google it later and you'll see what I mean. And then, of course, there's the Pinterest version, which is, it's a whole thing. Google it and be lucky that you don't know what that is.
Good. I'm going to get an elf on a shelf as my only decoration. Okay. My turn. With Christmas shopping ahead, what is something that you bought this year of $100 or less that really made your life better?
Oh,
that is a great question.
Oh man, we're gonna have to edit out some time.
I know.
I can play some Jeopardy music here if you like.
Oh yeah. The do 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 do. Michael, do you have one? Can you tell us yours?
So I got a small battery hand vacuum thingy for $70, and it's so incredible because I hated vacuum cleaning because I have to get that thing out of the storage area, and then everything always gets tangled up. Like vacuum cleaners have this power to always get tangled up somehow. And now I just grab this little hand vacuum, and I'm a really chaotic snacker when I watch something, and then there's like crumbs everywhere, and this thing is just amazing.
Chaotic snacker.
Chaotic snacker. That's hysterical.
It's hilarious.
You know what I think mine might be? This is super dorky, but I would say mine is that I bought a old school calculator. And even though, of course, phones and computers have calculators, I do the finances for POTC. And when I'm needing to like put expenses and things into my Excel spreadsheet, it's like I'm looking at the bank app on my phone, and it's not convenient to use the calculator apps, especially to go back and forth. And so I bought a $6 calculator on Amazon, and this thing is like a game changer. It's made my life so much easier. And I've used it for much more of that without even realizing that I would. So it's silly, but it's like a $6 calculator. Kicking it old school over here.
Wow.
What about you, Emily?
Oh, no. I was hoping buying all that time I would think of something. I don't think we bought it this year, but what was life-changing for family life was an air fryer.
Oh, yes.
I mean, my kids can make their own food so much easier. They just like pop in some frozen stuff in there and run it.
You might need to give me some recipes because we bought one and never, ever use it.
Oh, well, okay. So full disclosure, we have a lot of frozen food. So it's like the best is for like chicken nuggets or French fries or like that kind of stuff that needs to be crispy.
Yeah.
But you can use it for like fish and vegetables. It's really good. Like we spray broccoli with olive oil and put some salt, pepper, and paprika. So
love it.
That was a game changer.
I considered air fryer on my, how am I going to respond to this question? I was like, because I love mine too. Yeah. But I actually
did say
decided
under $100.
It was.
I think
we got it on sale at Costco.
We don't have like a super
Mine was
fancy one. It
definitely
wasn't
more
that
than that.
expensive.
Yeah.
I actually kind of wish I would have bought a bigger one at this point, but mine is pretty small and basic.
It takes up a lot of counter space. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
But
I stash mine. So I'm going to go with something that's also kind of, I don't know, I feel like this is a very uninteresting answer, but one of my little self-care things is I just really love having very cold water. You know, it's like this ridiculous, and it's very American, you know, ice water. But I have a couple of just really well insulated water containers that felt like a little bit of a splurge, honestly, because part of me is like, this is ridiculous to buy, you know. But I just feel like when I have that and it's filled with cold water, I stay hydrated. It just feels really good to me. I just feel like that's one of, you know, the care and feeding of Debbie
Self-care.
involves
That's great.
having some nice beverages at all times. So
do you also enjoy hot beverages, coffee and tea?
Oh yes.
Because I highly recommend the Ember mug.
Oh.
The Ember mug is a smart mug that keeps your hot liquids hot. My husband bought me one of those for no reason gifts, which are the best kind of gifts, because I was constantly microwaving my coffee. And he bought me an Ember mug, and it is like my most prized possession. I didn't just get it this year, so I couldn't use that as my official answer. And
but
it's
I really
not
do go back and forth.
It's awesome.
Coffee, water.
Yeah.
It's like there's various beverages depending on the time of day. So hot, cold.
I feel
keep the temperature right. You know,
that's right.
I feel guilty now, and I want to apologize to all the children out there who on Christmas Day get either a calculator or an air fryer or a hand vacuum cleaner. I didn't think that question through. So parents, please be kind to your children and buy age appropriate gifts.
Although my mother got my son when he was maybe around 6 a dustbuster, like
he must have loved it.
We all love it. Like
yeah.
It's so fun. So
maybe I'll buy one of those for my son. He would love that.
A little vacuum.
Totally okay, here's my question. I want to know if you could get absolutely any guest, not like realistic necessarily, but absolutely any guest to be your POTC guest, to do a POTC interview, who would you choose?
Well, you know the answer to mine because I asked her, which is when Michelle Obama, I've told this story before, when Michelle Obama's new book came out, and I had a lot of themes that were relevant to our podcast, and I had a connection with her publisher because of all the books we coordinate with publicists on the podcast. And so I just went ahead and asked, and I got a very polite
someday,
response, which was no, but was very kind because Mrs. Obama is very busy. But that's my dream because I sent that and there was this, I can't believe I just did that response. But there was also, what would I do if she said yes? I would, it
would take a lot of preparation, a lot of calming techniques.
Yes, I would use every tool in my tool belt for dealing with anxiety and nervousness, but it didn't happen. But that's okay. But that's mine.
Who's yours, Michael?
So you said it doesn't have to be realistic. So I'll hold on to that because otherwise I wouldn't really have an answer. And you're not going to like this, Jill, because of your time travel adversity. But I would love to interview Dr. Viktor Frankl. He had such a huge influence on my life, up to and including a tattoo. And I just love to sit in his favorite cafe here in Vienna, which I actually love to frequent, and bombard him with questions.
That would be pretty cool.
We did not
would require
say
time travel.
They had to be living, right? We didn't say that. So.
Right.
It would be disappointing if Michael gave us someone that was living. It was like when we asked the question, what you would do if you weren't doing the work you're doing now, and he said he'd be an eagle. We were like, oh, okay, I guess we're outside the realm of reality here. So he's just being on brand with
You're joking about this now, but when my interview with Dr. Viktor Frankl airs, like, you will be the one we're laughing at, Jill.
What about you, Emily?
So I would love to sit down and really talk to Simone Biles. I am really fascinated by her as a young woman who is I would say the greatest athlete of all time in terms of what she can do with her body and the life she has lived, and being under the spotlight and all the pressure, how she manages to continue to show grace and humility, and her whole decision at the Tokyo Olympics to not compete because of the twisties was the biggest act of bravery and such a good role model for my kids who are, burgeoning athletes. I just am really fascinated by her as a person, as like a modern day. And I don't think she's aiming to be, a role model and like a hero, but she's done some really courageous things. So I think it would be really interesting to talk to her.
She's amazing, and I think you should ask her. If Debbie can ask Michelle Obama, you can ask Simone Biles.
Hey,
Michael cannot ask Viktor Frankl, but
if any listener has a Simone Biles connection.
Or Simone, if you're listening.
Or Simone.
There you go. You miss 100% of the chances you don't take, right?
Right,
well,
Jill.
mine, it's probably no surprise to anyone at all, but mine, of course, would be Oprah. Because I'm slightly obsessed, but similar to what you're saying about Simone. She's just a human who's overcome so many obstacles and challenges and has never let it stop her. And I just think that she is such a powerhouse inspiration, and I would give anything to talk to her. Really, I just want to be friends with her. So if anyone has a connection to Oprah, please invite me to your next cocktail party.
And we promise you she'll not be creepy.
I'll try not to be creepy. I don't know if we can promise.
Okay, but this might be a fun one to end on. And if you need to buy time, I have my answer ready.
Okay.
So a few of us have been on a podcast called Life's Dirty Little Secrets. I want to know your dirty little secret.
Wow.
Oh, no.
So this is a great question, but I feel like I already confessed mine, and I even called it a dirty little secret earlier in the episode. No, it's not really a dirty little secret, but the fact that I've had bariatric surgery is something that is treated like it's a dirty little secret. And I am coming out of the closet and revealing my secret to everyone. What's yours, Emily? You said you already had yours at the ready.
Yeah. So this would kind of set the tone. Doesn't have to be as big as Jill's, coming out.
Yeah, set the tone, please.
Okay. So my dirty little secret is I work from home 4 days a week. So I'm, very much at my desk and back and forth between the kitchen and the dogs. So at lunchtime, my little treat is to go sit on the couch and watch really trashy TV. So I alternate between Love is Blind, Selling Sunset, and The Ultimatum, which is terrible. So it's all terrible. I feel so like I'm feeding an empire that is not healthy, but I can't stop watching. And it is like the perfect brain break for me. So that's my dirty little secret. That's no longer a secret.
Beautiful.
It's a guilty pleasure.
It is a guilty pleasure.
Thank you for calibrating this for all of us, because when I first heard that question, I was like, when this episode's air, I'm going to spend like Christmas in jail. But now I can down-regulate a little bit. And so I'll escalate the answer for every episode we do like this over the next couple of years. But I'll start with something maybe a little bit similar. And that is how, as much as I love cooking and eating healthy, my dirty little secret is that I love the plant-based nuggets that Burger King has in Austria. And frankly, I don't want to run an ad for them because they taste like wallpaper, and they're more expensive than the actual chicken nuggets, which is I can't even comprehend how chicken feet is more expensive than actual chicken. But a large box of plant-based nuggets, some hot sauces, and a box of French fries that will, put me in a food coma once a month.
Nice.
Mine is that I have a mild addiction to notebooks and pens and stationery kinds of, the kinds of things you can buy at a nice stationery shop. And so I go down these rabbit holes of reading blogs about fountain pens and journals. And it's it's like an escapist thing or something like that. I literally read blogs about this. I try very hard to keep it in check because I do not need more clutter in my life. And one can only use so many paper products, but it's just this little, I have stacks of notebooks, some of which I've used and some of which are just sitting there waiting to be used. And I try really hard to keep it in check, but it's just a little bit of a problem sometimes, but also kind of fun. And as far as problems go, it's really not that big of a vice.
I love it. That's a great question. That's a good one to end on. We are definitely way over our hour of time. But this was so fun.
This was really fun. Yeah. So
it was not by a fire, but it was pretty cozy.
There was a theme though, because we had the fire tattoo. I had my fire in the garage. It's the holidays, so we're gonna
And when Michael pronounced, what is it,
Hygge? Now I've given it like 3 different variations, so one of them is going to correct, and when we get the first complaint, we're just going to re-edit the episode and patch that good pronunciation into all the other
when you first said it, I immediately thought of St. Elmo's Fire, when they used to go, a booga, 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 For some reason, that's what it brought up for me. So St. Elmo's Fire. So we had fire all over the place.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. We will look forward to the year ahead, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to Psychologists Off the Clock. If you enjoy our podcast, you can help us out by leaving a review or contributing on Patreon.
You can get more psychology tips by subscribing to our newsletter and connecting with us on social media.
We'd like to thank our podcast production manager, Jadine Stout-Williams.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you're looking for mental health treatment, please visit the resources page of our website, offtheclockpsych.com.